Well, good morning. It is 0800 on the left coast. And I had somebody comment yesterday, day before, and he said, man, 8 a.m. is really early. Guys, I've been on day shift since 2006. So 8 a.m. is not early in my world. 4 a.m., on the other hand, is. You know what you're not going to see at 4 a.m.? This and this beautiful head of hair. Not going to happen at 4 a.m. Nope. On a quick programming note, however, Friday, I said I was going to go live at 8 a.m. all week long. Friday, I need to change it up because now I have an MRI scheduled. Hooray for me. Happens to be at 8:30 in another town. So I'm going to have to leave here about 8 a.m. So I will likely go live later in the day. I have no idea what time. But if you follow MCPD here at facebook.com/motorcopblog, you'll be notified when I schedule it. I will schedule it ahead of time, at least 45 minutes to an hour ahead of time, so I can get my MRI in and figure out what in the blue hell is wrong with my back. But today, we're talking about this, getting your spouse on board with your finances. A minefield of a topic, to be sure, but we're going to dive into it, and it's going to be weird. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Kirk. I'm going to put that up there. Knows very well what he is talking about. And I swear to God, I didn't even pay him. So there. Thank you very much, Kirk. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. I love being helpful. It's funny, before we get into today's topic, I remember when I first started in law enforcement, just being in the academy, those many moons ago, and never in a million years would I have ever thought about doing something like this, mostly because it didn't exist, it wasn't a thing, but being on camera, talking to people, teaching, creating courses, both in and outside of law enforcement, never would have occurred to me. So as just a little bit of a side note here, you never know what the future holds. So be open to new things. And that goes for your spouses as well, which is an amazing segue. I know, I do what I can. So today we're talking about getting your spouse on board with your money. So as in most things, I'm going to start with my experience, something that got us into this in the first place. So it was 2009, and I was just walking around the house, and as I walked through the living room, my wife said to me, I need to talk to you about something. I'm worried about our finances. Now, back then, I was still making a decent wage, but much like I said yesterday, it wasn't so much when we thought about making a big purchase, it wasn't can we buy it, it was can we afford the payment. That was my mindset back then. So the fact that we were able to make these payments didn't stress me out at all, but it really stressed my wife, Katie, quite a bit. So she told me, I'm worried about our finances. So for whatever reason, I didn't get defensive. I listened to her and I sat down and we had a nice talk about money for the first time in our relationship. Backing up to prior to us getting married, we went through premarital counseling, and you take all the assessment tests to find out where you lie in certain things, be it religion or your parenting style or the relationship with your family, stuff like that. We were on the exact same page on every single topic except for one: money. We were diametrically opposed. Complete opposite perspectives on how to handle money. So the fact that she made that statement felt comfortable enough to be vulnerable, which one of the keys, by the way, of getting your spouse on board, is being willing to be vulnerable. And that's not easy, especially for type A first responders, cops, firefighters, EMS guys and gals, because we are used to being in control all the time, which, by the way, isn't the greatest quality in the world. I know, I suffer from it. But then she asked me a question. She said, have you ever heard of Dave Ramsey? And I had no clue about Dave at all. But true story, I left that conversation, went to Barnes & Noble, which used to be a bookstore chain, and bought Dave's book, The Total Money Makeover. And I believe I used a credit card to do it, which is ironic as hell. I read that book in 2 days, cover to cover, and that was it. I mean, we were on board, all in, period. And we've been on the same page with our money ever since. Now, that's not to say that we haven't had some deep discussions about how to handle our finances. We have, but what we don't do is argue about it anymore. We don't have those prototypical money fights. So if you're watching this and you're in law enforcement and you've been to this many DV calls, for those of you not in law enforcement, that's domestic violence, what is the issue behind the fight? Oftentimes, in my experience, it's one of two things: infidelity or money. Or money because you're, supporting somebody here with the infidelity. Whatever it is, money is the number one reason for divorce in this country, year in and year out, right? I want to help you avoid all of that. We're going to talk about some pitfalls that people get into, but the 50,000 foot view on this particular topic, let's talk about that real quick. You need to be open, be vulnerable, be able to listen while also communicate. Now, listen doesn't mean wait to talk, which the wife and I still struggle with. We're not perfect, we're still human, but I try and make a conscious, concerted effort to, when she is saying something she's concerned about, I try not to be mentally creating a list of counterpoints. This isn't a court of law. I'm not a defense attorney or for the prosecution. This is a relationship. Relationships are dirty, they're messy, they're a pain in the ass. They're all of these negative things sometimes. But if you're doing it in such a way that you are being open and honest and communicative with one another, that negative part of it is such a small percentage. It takes effort. It is not easy. It is not easy to get on the same page with your spouse, be it about money or anything else. I am not a licensed family therapist or a marriage counselor. I've just been married for 15 years, and I know a thing or two about how she and I work. So maybe you have a similar experience. Maybe you can learn from us. Hell, if you have input, drop it in the chat. I would love to hear other people's experiences. So here are some ways to get started with getting your spouse on board. There are some do's and some don'ts. The don'ts, let's start with those. Don't say, we're getting out of debt. That's a pretty big bomb to drop. What does that mean? We're getting out of debt. It is very quickly followed by some other don'ts. Oh, I'm going to sell your insert thing here. So when we were getting out of debt, I had a motorcycle, right? Even though I rode a bike at work, I had one here as well. Then we started having kids, and we bought the house and all that kind of good stuff. And the bike just sat here. And it was a gorgeous motorcycle. It was an '06 Honda VTX 1800. Man, that thing, the torque on it was unbelievable. And I loved it. It was gorgeous, but it just sat here. That being said, though, if she just came to me, instead of saying, I'm concerned about our finances, and have you ever heard of Dave Ramsey, she could have said, hey, I want to sell your bike so we can pay off the travel trailer. I'm sorry, you're going to sell off my what now? No. Right? That automatically puts my defenses up. But when she came to me out of love, out of a perspective and point of view of concern, being a relatively attentive husband, I feel like I need to listen to her. She drew me in that way. It wasn't a trick. It's not a trap. It's not a trap. It's something that she just did to communicate something she was concerned about with me. The other thing to avoid, don't say something like, well, you can't buy or spend this money without talking to me first. We're creating this plan. It's a rigid plan. It is inflexible. I say you can spend $70 a month on this, but above and beyond that, no, you can't. No. This is not legalism, right? Yes, you are creating a budget, you are creating your plan, and I show you how to do that, by the way. See how amazing my segues are? If you go to themotorcopmindset.com/budget challenge, I will walk you through 5 simple steps over 5 days that will teach you how to create your first unique to you sustainable budget. But if she just came in and said, you have to do this, that's not a relationship. That's more like a parent-child. Swear to God, this morning, got into it with the littlest because she didn't want to take a shower. And she was making demands. She's 8. She doesn't make demands. You're not in charge. Sorry, that's not the way the parent-child relationship works. It is, however, how the husband and wife relationship works, or should at least. You have input, I have input, we come together, we talk about it, we consider the other person's perspective, consider their opinion, and then we figure out a solution. Again, it's not easy, it's messy as hell, but if you keep in mind that ostensibly you love this person that you are in this relationship with, it would behoove both of you to listen to one another. So those are the things you kind of don't want to do. We talked about the inflexibility of a budget, which is a myth we talked about on Monday, the first day, about why budgeting is so important. The budget is yours. If it's inflexible, that's because you're being inflexible. If you don't like it, change it. It's yours. You are in charge of your money. Once you tell it where to go and you want to change it, you cannot on the fly change it without the input of your partner. You cannot do that. Absolutely not. That is going to lead to a money fight. But let's use a category for example. I'm going to use something we call blow money. Money that you can just blow away, right? When we were getting out of debt, we gave ourselves $50 a month to do whatever we wanted with. So if I wanted to go after work and go to choir practice, grab a couple of beers with the guys, I would just call the wife and say, hey, do you mind if I go out for a little while after work? Yeah, go for it. Awesome. It wasn't, hey, can I spend $20 on some beers? That I had the money set aside for that reason. Now here's the caveat. If I don't have that money, if I spent it all last week and payday is not for another 3 weeks, I have to play the role of the grown-up and say no. It's a difficult word to say, but the more you say it, the easier it gets. Hey, Jay, can you grab some beers after work with us? I can't, guys. I spent all my money last week. Sorry. Oh, well, I'll buy you a round. I'm in, right? That works great. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to turn that off real quick. So that's the concept of blow money. It's a very important category in your budget because it gives you that steam to blow off. Yesterday, I wanted to go to, we've gotten, if you've not heard, over quarantine, we've gotten deep into board games, like deep into board games, and not like Clue and Monopoly. I'm talking about games that will span the course of a year, and we absolutely love them. They are not inexpensive, however. We have money set aside for that expenditure. Not while we were getting out of debt, mind you, because the latest game is not as important as me no longer being in debt, right? Things are very, very different now because we don't have that debt, and we worked on it together. And the blow money aspect of your budget helps keep you sane because you are going to face those times when you say to yourself, man, I've been working so hard. I really deserve a Starbucks on shift today. Well, if you have money set aside for that in your blow money, knock yourself out. If you don't, you get to say no to yourself. You get to be a responsible adult. It's not always fun, believe me, but it does get easier. So when I ran this challenge initially back in October of last year, somebody asked me a question right at the end of one of our sessions, and I swore I'm not going to go past 30 minutes. I respect your time. Same holds true for these live videos. My back is starting to get a little tight, so I'm probably going to wrap up inside of 10 minutes tops. But somebody asked me a bum of a question. What do you think about a husband and wife having separate bank accounts? Oh, here's that grenade. Have a good day. Oh my God, what do I do? And it's one of the things that I get asked quite often. And I will give you the easy answer and then a little bit of a longer answer. The easy answer is it is a god-awful idea. It's a terrible idea. Let me ask you a question. Are you Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Mr. and Mrs. insert last name here? Or are you Smith LLC? Are you in a relationship or in a business arrangement? That's tough, right? Well, we've both been married before and we had issues over money. Yeah, I bet you did. So we've decided to keep everything separate. How's that working out? You have a lot of intimate talks about money, or do you avoid it like the plague? If you learn how to navigate that minefield, you can go from where you are to where you want to be fairly easily in retrospect. Now, when you're in the midst of it, it is stressful. Think of the academy for those of you that have gone through that experience. Looking back at it now, it's a totally different perspective than when you were in the thick of it, right? Same scenario here. It encourages division in your relationship. I would encourage you to combine everything for a number of reasons. First, you are a team. If you are think of a football team. You all have your job to do, but you're working together. If the offensive line suddenly decided, you know what, I'm gonna punt the ball now, is that gonna work out well, or is the quarterback gonna get destroyed? He's gonna get destroyed. Everybody has their job, everybody has their part to play, but they are working cohesively as a team. If you have multiple accounts, you've got a checking and a savings, your spouse has a checking and a savings, that's 4 separate accounts. And let's say you handle the mortgage, everything house related, PG&E or your gas and electric, your spouse handles groceries and things for the kids. That gets really confusing and it makes budgeting exceedingly hard, way harder than it needs to be. If you combine everything into one account, especially if you start using the You Need a Budget, YNAB, and I'll say this again as an aside, they sponsor the podcast, my What's Your Emergency podcast, and we have a 34-day free trial. It is an affiliate link, so if you click on it and you join, we get a few bucks at no extra cost to you. But if you go to ynab.com/WYE, you can get a 34-day free trial of YNAB. If you are using that particular budgeting software and you've got this many accounts, balancing everything becomes really difficult. But if you only have one, like we have a checking account, we have a savings account, and the only thing we use our savings for is our emergency fund. Everything else lives in our checking account, including money that we're not going to spend anytime soon. So we talked about some concept of the sinking fund, I think. It's definitely in the budgeting challenge. That's step 4, fund it. If you go to themotorcopmindset.com/budget challenge, you'll learn more about that. But if you have the sinking fund, and let's say we've got $200 set aside for vehicle maintenance, well, that money lives in our checking account, not in our savings. It lives in our checking account. We just don't touch it. We have the patience and the wherewithal to leave that money alone. Now, I would be lying if I said things like the blow money don't burn a hole in my pocket, because they totally do. I wanted to go to the game store in the worst way for the last probably 2 weeks, and I was able to hold off until yesterday. So we went and bought a couple of games yesterday, and that particular itch has been scratched for probably certainly the rest of the month. It's the 19th today? I think I can muddle through for the next 12 days. But the interesting thing about getting your finances in order, particularly with your team member, with your spouse, is that when you start to falter, when you say, man, I would really like to go out to dinner, I would really like to take you out to dinner. Well, there's a couple of ways that the spouse can respond to that. If If you have this huge goal of getting out of debt, one of you has to be the adult and say, we can't do that yet. Think about it this way. I talked about the what not to say, so let's talk real quick about what to say. If you want to get your spouse on board, come at it like this. Don't tell them, ask them. Ask them, what would life be like if we had no debt? What would we be able to do, see? Where would we be able to go? What can we experience? What can we give and help others if we didn't have these thousands of dollars every single month going to somebody else? Which, by the way, especially in credit cards, maybe the thing you bought was years ago and you don't even own anymore. Ooh, that hurts, right? So start to dream a little bit with your spouse. It sounds a little out there, a little esoteric, but start having this conversation about what would our life be like? For us, the fact that I am even considering retiring at 48 years old is only possible because of everything we did 10 years ago. It's the only reason it's possible. Otherwise, I would be in this job for many years to come. Sit down and say these words. Imagine how much less stressful our lives would be if we weren't spending all of this money to everybody else every single month. Money is stressful. Working overtime is stressful. Not knowing how you make it payday to payday is stressful. That in and of itself is hard to deal with. Then you put another person in the mix. Oh dear Lord, because they're going to feel stress in a different way than you do. You're going to process it differently. Now, I'll do you one better. Throw kids in. Holy smokes, man. So I've got stress at work, I've got stress at home, and I have to parent somebody inside of this S-storm of drama and stress. It's hard. The budget is the way out of that because you have this plan. You sat down and you spent a number of hours creating this exit strategy from stress. You're still going to have stress, but it ain't going to be finance related, at least after a period of time. What if you sat down and you said, what if we create a category that allowed us to spend a certain amount of money every single month without having to check in with one another? That feels liberating. It's not an allowance. You're not a child, which, by the way, we don't give our kids allowances at all. They work. If you want money, you're going to do something because that's the way life works. We don't just give. I'm not the federal government. I'm just not giving them money. Put in some effort and I will reward you monetarily. That's the way we do it at our house. Don't think of the blow money as an allowance. I'm not giving my wife an allowance. Good Lord. No, we both earn money and we pool it together. When we were getting out of debt, I was the sole breadwinner. She didn't have Katie Can Help, which is an amazing professional organizing business, by the way, katiecanhelp.com. But she didn't work outside the house. So it was all on me to earn the money. I was a big fan of saying, I make the money, but she makes the money work. It's not my money. It is our money because we are a team. You start changing your pronouns, which is a wonderful thing people love to do these days. But if you change the pronoun from yours and theirs to ours, if there isn't that division anymore and you come together, that's a huge step in the right direction. It sets things off in a pure way. And it connects you in a way that I never thought was possible. And I'm happy to report that it absolutely is. I think that's going to wrap it up for today. My back is telling me I am done standing. So if you want to go to themotorcopmindset.com/budget challenge, it'll take you to a little page. You enter your first name and your email, and you can get started today. There is no convenient time to start having these conversations, guys. It's never convenient. It's never easy. Get it done. You're an adult. You are a responsible member of society. If you don't have a budget and you are freaked out about how to start it, this program is a piece of cake and walks you through. I walk with you every step of the way. I am available to you every step of the way. Associated with this challenge is a private closed Facebook group that you can join. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because you got to do this first. But I am available to the people that I serve all the time. Matter of fact, I had a phone call with somebody that was watching this yesterday. Got to chat with him for 20, 30 minutes about some concerns he was having around money. And I was able to walk him through some different ways of thinking. He makes the decisions. I just offer my support, my experience. And again, having gone through Dave Ramsey's financial coach training, I am uniquely placed in the law enforcement and first responder community because I know what it's like to walk in your shoes and be facing money issues. I promise I can help you. Go to this link, get started today, and let's get your spouse on board. Follow the simple things we talked about today. Ask, don't tell. Be open, be communicative, listen. These are all simple things to say, and the more you do them, the easier they get. Tomorrow I will be back at 0800 again on Friday. I'm gonna have to change up the time. I'm not gonna tell you what time because I don't want to say one thing and then have the MRI take 7 hours or something ridiculous. So you'll be notified if you follow me at facebook.com/motorcopblog, and it'll tell you when I'm planning on going live. So have a great day. Get started. I'll see you tomorrow, 0800. Cheers.